is 2-2 as we head into Game 5 between Ballistics and Team Dignitas. Frankly, I thought we would go to Game 5 in this series. Did you?
No.
Okay.
So I thought it would be a lot more competitive. I didn't think we would see the results of a 2-2 or a 2-2 going into Game 5, but I felt like it would be really tense games that ended up in a 3-1 in one way or the other. You know, like where feels like most of the 3-1s we see is like 2 games dominant, 2 competitive. I felt like it would be just tense the entirety of the way, but one team would overcome the other. Not the case. Very competitive here. And it seems like the name of the game has been Tyrael for both of these teams. Game number 5 is going to take place on Battlefield of Eternity.
First Pick has won every single game in this series. That is not the case for the rest of this tournament. It has been very even across the board for First Pick, but here it's working for these teams. And that does give at least the mental edge, I would say, to Ballistics. Although, if they didn't feel like they ever were going to get to a Game 5 versus Team Dignitas, maybe the pressure's on. Especially with the momentum for Dignitas going forward into this game. What do you think of Dig picking Battlefield of Eternity?
Seems, I don't want to say strange, but a little risky to take any kind of a Korean team, I feel like, to a map like Battlefield of Eternity. But I don't know. I'm torn. I feel like I want to say that I would give Ballistics a minor edge into this, judging on what we've seen be picked and prioritized within not only their own region, but throughout the tournament before and Ballistics, or BlizzCon, sorry.
By banning Abathur, it leaves both Genji and Task Tracer up. Ballistics could only get one of those, and they haven't played Tracer. They get Genji. Is it?
You can see they're asking the question. Do we Task Tracer? Do we commit? If they didn't Task Tracer, I don't see any iteration where they would risk going any kind of, you know, wild Morales as we've seen. Used to be meta.
Yeah, they could always get
Genji.
Sorry, they could always get Greymane, who gives more of the immortal pressure, and then get one of the picks that would take away from Genji, like Tyrael.
And synergize with that Greymane. It
At the
seems
same
like that
time.
would be the biggest power play rotation here for Dig. I mean, to me, that stands out as the play, right? Not only are you accenting the map, you're synergizing, you're picking meta and objectively powerful heroes within the system.
Reckoning is at
And
hand.
they're going to opt out. So a little bit... It's not necessarily opting out. I think that's a little bit unfair way to word it, but it does lack what the rotation you and I were talking about. It does lack on just straight out race potential, right? You're not committing to that with the Greymane whatsoever. You're even giving it up to Ballistics if they decide that was something they want to pick up for themselves. Lucio does have different ways that Lucio and Tyrael actually have different ways to be able to play this map than some of the other heroes, but I don't think that into a Genji and more importantly an offensive team like Ballistics, I would take that type of risk.
It's a steal. Ballistics has been favoring Lucio so much this series, this tournament, and you take Tyrael away from Genji, it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk.
It's so far, at least, well, I wanted to say seems to be paying off, but if we look at some of the tendencies of the amount of time Ballistics has taken in these drafts, even in the games where it seems like they're winning, they are taking almost every second they have in that pool. They're going to commit to a Muradin and a Greymane. How do we feel about the Muradin?
Seems very high in priority.
Can we think, I mean, my first thought goes, well, why is it this high in priority? And then the next thought goes, is that a haymaker? It's got, like, that's always my thought, to make sure that Tyrael has a harder time and making sure he gets value at all. I don't think it's a must, but something that Korea is is no stranger to.
My biggest concern is that, ooh, wow.
It drew the ban.
Well, my biggest concern I was going to say is that there is no Tyrael. Ballistics wants to steal Greymane, so that there's no Greymane to go along with the Tyrael, and they have Genji, and yet Dignitas had the opportunity to take Uther, ban Rhaegar, something like that, like take away a lot of these ways of enabling those heroes, but the Zeratul is just too much. They've had enough with it, at least.
What does Ballistics now take away? Arthas works pretty well anytime you see that Tyrael and Lucio. Those are extremely synergistic, debatably some of the highest within their individual roles to work with the Arthas. One of Arthas' better maps and isn't too shabby into the Grey Mane or Genji.
What?
The double invulnerability removal for ballistics in this situation, when you removed both of the hyper carries, what are you afraid of? Why? Gilly. They're on to something.
They are. Let's see if your commentators can get onto it too.
Yeah, because that is the most curious ban, knowing that they haven't picked a support, talking about the rise of Uther, synergizes with their composition. Yes, Dignitas's composition would work well with it as well, but what does that pick? Commit to the Task Tracer.
The Task Tracer.
That had to be expected, though. I mean, we talked about it. You let it go through one ban phase. Can you assume that it's going to make it through a second? And if it does, that you're not going to get it picked up by Dignitas? I mean,
I don't think there's any world with the amount of times Dignitas have enjoyed playing it.
Do you just sit there and be like, man, I really wish I had that Uther so I could get the armor to stop the pulse bomb? I'm still trying to figure it out here.
The confusion. I hope that's not a look of confusion.
I hope not. SE.
We believe in you.
You had a point when you hovered Uther and you hit OK. There was a strategy here. It's got to come to life in the 4-5 for ballistics.
Can the outdrafters outdraft this?
Glory to the Scourge.
All right.
Offensive, pretty good synergy. Decent amount of race. Better race than that of Dignitas. Dignitas is going to be zoning and threatening a lot over the map objective. Gotta wonder if Dignitas maybe wants to put consideration into the side lane and maybe go for a slower play using the 4-man offense that they have and looking for more side soak, especially with how offensive ballistics is looking to be with this. But do you want to take that type of risk and, you know, rely on a late game in game number 5 on Battlefield of Eternity in the region that kind of hallmarks the 8-minute game? I'm going to be honest, I want to say, yeah, you took the risk with the high Lucio and Tyrael. Why stop now? Yes, you do have some comforts, but that doesn't mean the remainder of your draft has to be. And it does feel like eking ahead in experience over ballistics and putting them in a lose-lose scenario.
So what then, Dahaka?
I mean, that stands out the most. Malthael would get the job done as well.
Man, there have not been a lot of Malthael picks. This is being picked into the Arthas and Muradin. A lot of control there. And the attack speed slows. But Malthael adds more damage for the Immortal fight, the Immortal race. He can, I don't know if Europe will play Malthael the same way that NA does, but pick on a Pale Horse and then have those faster rotations between lane to Immortal. And he sets up for, he has the Sanctification and Sound Barrier, and he sets up for some Tracer kills.
He does prep the Tracer kills, especially post 13, really, really well. But it's not the same as prepping a reset composition, right? I think that's the biggest thing to highlight compared to some of the Malthaels, especially if anybody's a North American fan, knowing that kind of Genji Malthael synergy we saw so heavily within, I think, Phase 2 Part 2, is it just flat out doesn't explode the teamfight in the same manner. It's like, okay, we used all our resources and you might be able to get that one kill, and yeah, Tracer can track everybody else down, but if you are able to deal with the Malthael and its Tormented Souls isn't that valuable, it is not nearly as difficult to kind of turn that thing back onto Team Dignitas with their composition.
The thing is, in a full team fight, Ballistics goes in, they have practically 5 melee, and then there's Sanctification and there's Sound Barrier. Get through that, Tormented Souls as everyone's running back, and then Tracer picks them off one by one, pew pew pew. No?
I think that is exactly the thought process going through their brains. It's just about how levels 1 through 9 play out, because even though Malthael we talk about the race potential he provides. He doesn't help necessarily the race when they're competitive.
Right.
He helps with his slow poke. He's like a
Yeah.
Li Ming in the fact that he has better damage sitting afar than most installing out and having that slow poke. Can you get that in the long run into a Genji Greymane comp? Genji
Karazim?
Greymane Murding Karazim? I feel like the answer to that one is pretty much no. And Tyrael comes online post 10, not so much into the early game. I normally would say, well, you can go for those high skirmishes, but when you lost the Greymane and the Genji over to the other side and you got yourself a Malthael, it's not like you even have a melee assassin to be bringing those skirmishes to pair with the Tyrael. So levels 1 through 9 to me looks so heavily into the favor of Ballistics that I'm more concerned for Dignitas than the Korean counterpart.
So what do you want to see them do? Just have Task Tracer try to loop around, see what picks they can get, mainly the Tracer, but having the Task Shields to help enable that. Meanwhile, keep in the lanes, make sure that nobody's getting caught out, send Malthael down to Death Shroud, do what damage they can, knowing that they're going to lose Immortals, but like not have as highly shielded ones.
I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that it doesn't matter if you lose the objective, unless somehow you get a snowballed kill, you know, with Poik there onto the Tracer. Well, we'll dabble in a little bit here, talking more into that. First, though, this is going to be Dignitas. They will be in the blue. Keep in mind, Game 5 here between these two teams. Battlefield of Eternity. Snitch will be on Tassadar. JPL playing the Tyrael. Wubby will be on Malthael. Poik on Tracer. And Zalia on Lucio.
Man, that timing was impeccable, my friend. Ballistics tied up with Team Dignitas as we head into the final game. SDE playing Greymane. SC on Genji. Jung Ha playing Arthas Hooligan on Muradin, and Magi playing Karazim.
So how I would expect it to unfold is, yes, heavily rely on Tyrael and Lucio to kind of go around and get the scouting out, because they're one of the most forward positioning heroes to be able to make sure the rotations on a map like BOE can be hindered. If you pretty much ever allow your opponent to be able to mount up, you're kind of Lucioing wrong on a map like BOE. And then using the Task Tracer not to necessarily be afraid of kills, but definitely try and push off Ballistics. Lose the objective, that's okay if you do so, and then try and rely on that post-10 team fight that it seems like the Malthael is really picked up for here for Dick.
Yeah, the Malthael, the Lucio, the Tyrael, all will get so much more from that. Game 5. The winner of this game goes on in the winners finals to play versus KSV. Will Dignitas take out Ballistics for a 4th time, counting the mid-season brawl in this event? Or will Ballistics finally have the revenge that they have been so desiring and go up against their Korean counterparts?
There you see Zalia and Tyrael kind of following behind, being able to scout out those rotations. It's a very useful tool for Lucio on this map. I feel like it's very undervalued for anybody who cannot maybe appreciate how important vision and rotational advantage and knowing those rotations can be on in Heroes of the Storm. Like that damage up on top is solely done because of that Tyrael-Lucio pairing I was talking about before.
Ballistics, though, are getting aggressive in their rotation, seeing if they can catch anybody on the way down. Go in, Howling Blast. Zalia pops the Amped up to heal himself back to plenty healthy. Ballistics has to disengage.
It's more about Ballistics just trying to hold out this laning situation and get themselves onto the shrine itself. And if this keeps up, Dignitas really is in a great position. Just keep stalling it out, again, relying on maybe that 10 that we can expect the Malthael problem to come online. The Tormented Souls prep for Poik. We're 8 seconds out from the first Immortal. Dignitas, I expect, even though they've been winning the laning, to want to avoid a full-out clash here. But they've kept Genji in a bad spot down below. Very well done, having Genji kind of worried about more experience than the team fight. So that means that Ballistics doesn't have near the threat that they want over this first Immortal phase.
Yeah, sitting in the defensive positioning, separated away from Genji. This allows Team Dignitas to get some poke in on this.
This is because probably because they feel like the Arthas is not going to be able to trade well into Wubby, just because the max percentile damage, whereas the squishier target like SC would. But I can't help but feel like that pulls away from the teamfight capabilities. Nice Howling Blast follow-up there onto JPL. Pulse Bomb is thrown down onto SDE, but he keeps himself alive. Damage is there. First blood over to Ballistics.
What a chaotic fight, but catching Moggy there, being able to keep him stunned, then getting the kill from that. Zaylia falls. It's a bloodbath between these two teams. It's SDE and Jungha starting to fall. The Reaper's Mark just causing so much difficulties for Ballistics, but those two stay alive. The problem, though, is that Dignitas is still healthy enough to go in and get some more pot shots put down on the Immortal.
I like that. Pot shots. That's exactly what it feels like. SC and friends getting their damage out. Malthael's trying to do his best abusing that passive. Jade goes in as a follow-up. Halftime is not going to be focused down here for Ballistics. Not as offensive as maybe you would predict. And Dignitas has got to be thankful, you know, with this situation here, even being down that kill in the early stages, that they're the ones not only winning this race, but more importantly, it's just that this damage is not very lopsided over towards Ballistics.
Yeah, exactly. Jungha is going to go further on. He is a good defensive hero, but takes the Pulse Bomb, and that is way too much damage for an Arthas to try to deal with. He goes back and forth. Parting Gift didn't finish him off, but eventually Team Dignitas take him out. There is a double kill, though, for Ballistics. They've taken out two, and they're finding JPL on the wrong side of the map. They'll take him down, too.
Focus on the damage. How much can Dignitas get done onto the shielding is the question we've got to be asking here. They're almost matching that of Ballistics, and when it's all said and done, it's going to be about 4,000 HP onto that shielding. Almost a full level lead here for Ballistics. If you were to, you know, draw an ideal situation for Dignitas looking at these earlier stages of how this game should unfold, it is a bit grimmer than they would hope. More so on the kills and how much they lost on that, and the shielding a little bit higher than you could maybe expect with this comp. So it's how can they stop the siege? And that's got to rely, again, on Point. He's got to dive past, find a way to threaten someone off. More probably somebody like Moggy or SDE.
Yeah, the first phase for Dignitas went very well. It was that second phase where Ballistics were able to get just too many kills. Boyk isn't the one collapsing. Ballistics takes out Malthael so quickly. Pulse Bomb is there on Jungha, but he is just fine now. SCSC trying to zone off Team Dignitas so that Ballistics can get the fort. And things are going from bad to way worse for Team Dignitas right now.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like the minute that they got that one kill with SC Switch Strike, finding the second one on Zaylia, they have not let go of the gas pedal here. Constantly pushing in, breaking the base now of Dig. And when they walk away from this Immortal and Poik threatens out any kind of zoning, it is still so much damage has been done here. You got to be asking if it even matters. Now they're going to go ahead and turn things around. Dignitas moves too far out of their base, and Ballistics is going to fight back here, finding two more kills onto Wubby and Poik.
Yeah, SC had left. He had deflected and left, and then Dignitas was willing to fight, and SC came right back to the aid of his team, gets those two kills, those two resets. Team Dignitas knows how dire this situation is. And every single time they go for a fight and then aren't able to win it, it gets worse and worse for them. But they know how dire it is, which is why they're still going for these fights. The problem, though, is this is a 2-level lead on Battlefield of Eternity, and that's just pretty scary.
It's about as rough as it gets in competitive Heroes of the Storm. Cannot honestly say I can paint a more grim picture that happens frequently, I think is the best way to put that, because let's be real here, we've seen more severe situations in competitive Heroes of the Storm. 3, 4, 5-level leads in some situations, but it's the map and the area in which we see that at this caliber of play. I don't know how Dignitas recovers. The biggest thing is somehow stall. Stall and get every ounce of experience on the map. Yes, maybe try and force a fight, get a pick if they can. Obviously, pre-10 has got to be the focus, but it is so clear-cut on how to win this game for Ballistics. You've got to be asking yourself, like, is it even possible that they make that simple of a mistake?
Yeah, this is definitely a situation where Team's mettle is tested. Can they figure out this puzzle and how to make it to heroic abilities now? They're starting with pushing back Ballistics, knowing that Ballistics doesn't want to fight before heroic abilities, and that lets them have a better setup initially in this Immortal area. However, 10 is here. SCSC's on the chase, so is Moggy. but a boop back saves Snitch.
It's going to be the haymaker there for Hooligan. We were wondering maybe why to go with that high Murden, and we see the answer now. Notice, Arthas yet to pick in his heroics. Won't do so until he finds a keep, probably, and depending on how much shielding this Immortal is going to be at. Then it will be the Syndragosa. Throw it over the wall, lock down every structure available, and get so much damage into it that the shielding on the Immortal and the experience disadvantage is so severe that Dignitas finds themselves at, again, we were talking about the 8 minutes games. It won't be 8 minutes, but probably about 9. Snitch using that dimensional shift, he's dead. To be honest,
Haymaker back to all of Ballistics.
that was maybe worth it for Dig. It bought a lot of time, and this is not where Ballistics maybe should be on the map at this point in time.
Yeah, Ballistics wants to get back into place. There's no free damage on this Immortal, which JPL is trying to do. Drops down the smite, but really just needed to get out of dodge. Dignitas are halfway to level 10. As Ballistics takes down this core, Webby's still in the bottom.
I don't know if we're going to get the Syndragosa. We do. It's going to be the Syndragosa play.
Here we
All right,
go.
Jung Hop. Watch him set up here. One of my favorite animations in the game. Time's up, Gilly.
Let's do this.
Here it is.
Dragon incoming. And Ballistics have 20 seconds of these structures doing nothing to help Team Dignitas defend versus this Immortal.
Keep in mind, if Ballistics is unsuccessful with this push, their teamfight capabilities as this game moves on are drastically lacking. And now Dignitas trying to capitalize. There's the Tormented Souls, the sound barrier. They move in, and look at Ballistics' HP dropping so fast. Moggy ends up getting the palm there. The Immortal's still sieging up, but at this point, we don't even know if it's going to get itself a keep. Gilly, for a Syndragosa 2-level advantage BOE, this is falling apart for Ballistics.
Ballistics took the risk on Haymaker and summon Syndragosa. They still have the palm, but there is touch of death for Team Dignitas' side. It didn't go off for that palm, but he can still have a lot of heal reduction off that have played out. Team Dignitas defends the keep. They don't even lose a keep versus the level 10 advantage for so long of Ballistics, and it was because Team Dignitas were able to stall out just enough. They kept Webby soaking in the lane until they got heroic abilities.
And I want to bring that back to when Snitch ended up getting that death on bottom. I feel like that was not only because he was not losing any experience onto the map, but buying enough time. Hooligan, though, he's going to go ahead and Dwarf Toss over, maybe look to force there, but Dignitas gets the retreat. And now everything I feel like we've said about this game is very, very different. Because Ballistics went in with the Syndragosa, we oftentimes see teams get that level lead, not commit to the Syndra, have that exact same thing happen. You go, well, they're still far, far ahead. But there is so much missing in this team fight, and the fact they're forcing pre-13. If I'm Dig, I take this skirmish.
Yeah, Poik, though, took a whole bunch of damage at the start of that. As Ballistics engages, it got the Syndragosa again, right on top of that mid-gate. Slows down and stops the reinitiation capabilities of Team Dignitas, allows Ballistics to steal the camp and get to 13.
There is maybe one silver lining that we have to look at for the Syndragosa pickup, and that's post 20. If we do see this game
absolute zero
go down the line, it is without a doubt the most undervalued talent, I feel like, just because Syndragosa is so rarely taken, and you're never going to take a heroic based on its 20 upgrade. But in the few cases we get it, Absolute Zero is a massive initiation range. I don't even know the exact seconds of lockdown and then to immediate 7-second slow. It just, if you get hit, you have to fight. It's going to force a sync. It's going to force a sound barrier. It's going to force something. But Dig, down the talent tier, they're going to go ahead and start this Immortal.
Put some free damage on it before Ballistics forces him back. And then Ballistics can decide what to do with their freedom of the middle of the map. Transition down, get Greymane onto the Immortals. They can start getting it to the halfway point, get the lead on that while Team Dignitas strives for 13.
Halftime now underway. Dig will have the 13 about right as she hits the ground. Genji's going ahead and prepping that bottom lane for Ballistics. That's going to set them up for some really nice experience and maybe draw some rotation from Dig. But the only person who would want to rotate would in fact be, well, now post 13 Tracer can get away with it, but I would say the Malthael is still the first person that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's just so nice because of the positioning of the Immortal. Ballistics knows they have to go through that. But Dignitas can try to force 5v4. Genji in this camp are doing so much damage to the keep in bottom. Nobody at all has started to head down there yet. Just now Malthael is going down.
Ballistics redefining the meta here. Not only do they have SC on Zeratul countering Tyraels in what felt like out of the meta play, but now they've got themselves a split push Genji. What you know about that, Europe? Talk about macro play. They're bringing it here. And now that is a keep.
This is amazing play. Amazing rotations and macro pressure from Ballistics. From whatever has happened on Cursed Hollow and Sky Temple, now they've taken it out of keep. This gets better and better for our Korean team.
They're going to have catapults building, but because it's so early into the game, it's a long while before there'll be a problem for Team Dignitas. It's on Dig to force this fight. Poik on that Task Tracer. I know I feel like for being the rookie, a lot of pressure, you know, I feel like I put onto him, but this is the composition they've drafted. And there is so much being set to make sure that he is the one carrying this team.
Dig has had Ballistics split for a long time, but Ballistics is slowly regrouping back up together as they dive in. He has to use Tormented Souls and his own cleanse. Inevitable in the Pulse Bomb. Magi does not have that palm procced, and he goes down. Team Dignitas find an opening.
I do find that opening. Now zoning away up there with Poik. The damage return onto the map objective, though, is going to be done by Wubby. So when the kill happens, they're still down a keep. They're still down a lot of damage up on the top half for Dignitas, but they get themselves the Immortal, about 25% shielding. They only have a very small time frame to where they can actually do something with this before the 16's picked up by Ballistics. I feel as though Dignitas cannot even have Snitch be sitting that far back. They need to make sure that this matters far more than just the easy fort or keep front wall, because the 16 in zone capabilities afterwards is going to be very problematic.
Ballistics are even willing to start fighting beyond the Immortal just to zone off Team Dignitas away, knowing that Tassadar was back so that they can get more time on this Immortal without Team Dignitas here zoning away from it.
I feel like Dig's just giving up a keep here. They are losing the 16. Okay, so they're giving up all their Immortal on bottom before 16's even achieved by Ballistics, which now Ballistics is going to pick up 16, and they're going to casually walk top and say, thank you for the keep that we got earlier into this game after the split push Genji. And then you already had problems with macro. Double catapults now this late into the game, that's a problem. And there's, sadly, you know, Sanctification doesn't work on cores, and there's no mule online here. So, oh, man.
They'll start with the camp in bottom, and then start rotating up and do the same in the top. Multiple camp pressure. Team Dignitas, their options are so limited now, but maybe catching some people on this top camp, splitting apart, maybe stopping before the rotation from Ballistics can get them all together. They nearly do that, but with the escape, it'll be just fine. JPL Haymaker to the back line, forced to self-sanctification. The Syndragosa comes out. Jung Ha sees the palm.
The palm keeps him alive. Magi and friends, they go ahead and throw down the fist, end up getting 2 more kills there. 1 for 2 trade in favor of Ballistics.
Nicely done. Jung Ha, Howling Blast catches Tracer after the blink.
Snitch tried to get the back there, but they're not going to let him go away. And if they end up staggering this death, it might be enough to make sure they end the game, because now there's about 10-second difference between Dignitas members. I guess there is no Genji. Karzim, though, and Greymane, some of the best damage dealers in the game. Ballistics, they're done with this. 16 minutes in, they want to walk up. They're going to try and lock this down.
They're on to the core, but there is no minions behind them, and they're finding that hurts a lot more than they'd like, and those respawn timers are just a little too close for them to be comfortable.
But they are still very different from that of Ballistics, and they have man up. They're not going to have a positional advantage over the halftime show. It's a legitimately at least 50% of the shielding onto the Immortal itself for free. Dignitas, they can at least use that time to rid of those catapults, but Ballistics can play safe. They'll not only have damage control on the objective, they'll have time on their side with both those catapults. So much so that I wouldn't even mind if they didn't even kick off the halftime and force Dignitas to respond, then make them collapse and buy that many more seconds for those catapults to be way too oppressive for Dig to handle.
Looks like your wish is their command. They're sending Genji back, the split push Genji of Legend, and getting the camp on the top lane too. This does give time for Team Dignitas to bring down the shielding. Any amount of shielding that they can take away limits what is a very scary death push for Team Ballistics. SC has been spotted out over on the other Immortal. It's all or nothing for Team Dig.
They go in, Sanctification. We see the Syndragosa used, but it doesn't get the value. Magi ends up getting the palm off, but there's already way too much damage there for SDE as he's going to drop. All of Ballistics backing away with that Tormented Souls value. The Catapults are sieging onto Dig's base, but they're way too slow. Genji's now going to make the rotation to try and pull them back to core, but it is way too late for that. Dignitas get another Immortal.
Yeah, it shows you how strong Team Dignitas are, that composition, when they take a fight on their terms, have Sanctification, Sound Barrier, and then Tormented Souls. It is just far too much for Ballistics to deal with, especially since they have opted into different heroic abilities for their warriors. Immortal's going to head to the top against that fort. A lot of damage coming in toward the core that Tassadar is doing his best to deal with.
SC is going to be revealed from that sidewall. They go in on Snitch. They're trying to just bait them back. There's no way Genji can actually threaten this core with just the Kharazim.
Arthas died in the top.
That is now a 4 versus 1 up on top. They're trying to be able to stop the back. This is full panic. Shielding on the core has been removed from Team Dignitas. Both Greymane and, or excuse me, Kharazim and Genji are the ones back, but Tassadar shielding are going to pull them away. And this is such a mismatch in favor of Dignitas at the other side of the map that inevitably it's probably going to be this keep.
That was 77% of the core, but no Arthas now for 30 more seconds as the rest of Ballistics tries to retreat quickly to defend this keep. But they are not making it back super fast. I think maybe Genji got spotted out, or was at least scared that he would be. Keep for Dig.
Keep goes to Dig, but it's not game, and that is the most important thing because there's still a keep advantage in theory in favor of Ballistics. They're going to go ahead and try and force this against the Sanctification very early. There's the Holy Ground, and Hooligan is dead. Dignitas, they want to end this game. Wabi goes in there with the Tormented Souls. SC is trying to threaten them off. They drop the Sound Barrier, and the shielding on the core is still very much here, Gilly.
Yes, Jungha trying to set on the rest of the people. SCSC
Syndra
hits a money Swift Strike on so many members.
Oh,
they have taken out Maltheo. The Dragon Blade far too much. Ballistics are tearing apart Team Dignitas. They tried to make the miracle play, but Ballistics holds their core, and they will win this game.
SC gets one reset and just cleans shop with Team Dignitas, and that is going to be it. The long walk across Battlefield of Eternity, knowing that this will be what it takes to be able to send Ballistics up to take on KSV Black in the winner's bracket.
It got so loud in here as Ballistics, as Dignitas won the first fight. They got the Immortal. As they got onto the core, they got the kills, but Ballistics were even louder as they take out Team Dignitas the minute that they knew that SCSC was able to hit that many people with the Swift Strike and go into Dragon Blade. They did it. It was a close one, a hard-fought battle, but Team Ballistics sends Dignitas to the lower bracket of the Gold Club World Championship.
Very thankful, you know, to see this knockout stage start like this, you know, because I feel like when we look at some of the results we saw out of the group stage, there are, you know, strategic reasons for it. There are also behind the scenes reason for some of the games that we've seen, but it has felt very rigid and, you know, debatably predictable on how those results have come out here. But now a lot is on the line. The games are starting to matter so very much. Meta's shifting, priority constantly shifting, but the play, man, I mean, that was
stellar.
Absolutely. From beginning to end. One of my favorite series I feel like I've seen on a mechanical level since almost spring of last year.
Yeah, it was an amazing series.
It was.
So good. I am immediately reminded of a tweet I saw from Snitch where he said he started out this tournament and he was like, don't worry guys, we're just here to learn, have some fun, it's fine. And then the minute that he realized how strong they are and how they measure up to the Korean teams here, he was like, never mind, I changed my mind. If we don't win, I'm going to be really mad. And unfortunately, it's probably a little miffed that they got so close, especially that they were so behind on Battlefield of Eternity. And they took the fights that they knew they had to take because that's how Battlefield of Eternity works. Even the end, having to go to the core because they had catapults on their own core. But Ballistics just had the advantage and they were able to walk away with a victory today.
Yeah, even with that last game, though, I will say looking at a 2-level disadvantage pre-10, pre-secondary Immortal phase, I don't think there's any situation as a team captain you look at that and you go, boys, we did well here. You know, there's definitely room for improvement, but everything past that, I think they can look at and genuinely say, we did near perfection, you know, and if we didn't do so, the right thought process was absolutely there. Maybe a couple of not half second, not having the level of synergy they would want in certain situations. But generally speaking, I would have said that there's no way that game goes as long as it is and as close as it was after the first couple of minutes. I mean, it was like 6-2 in terms of kills, and it felt like a GG at that point in time.
BLX with this victory goes on to face KSV, but it'll be a few days until we get that treat. Karazim and is the player, Magi, getting MVP with the Karazim play.
Hit a couple good palms there in the last game. Always good play, you know, for Karazim coming out from Magi. Though it's just for me in that last series in particular was just, or the last game, was just his palms to be able to make sure to keep people alive, because I don't know if anybody, I don't know how popular Syndragosa is in like Hero League, to be honest. Like, I feel like I've never seen it, but also like I just don't understand like how frequent that is. But if you've ever played Arthas without your heroic of Army of the Dead, you're one squishy puppy. So making sure to get those palms to try and turn around those fights. That being said, Tormented Souls had so much work into a 5-man melee squad that there are no palms that can save that situation.
Yeah.
Well done, but also it was a tough game for any Karazim.
Yeah, it was a tough game for everyone involved, I would say. As you can see, KSV will be taking on BLX in a few days. Tomorrow, though, is where we start the elimination matches, the true elimination matches. CE versus BTG, China versus China, and then Roll20 Esports versus SPT. Obviously, looking at this, the more likely competitive match should be Roll20 versus SPT. BTG have not been able to win a game, although they have been working really hard to improve, and CE just looks to be the best of these bottom 4 teams. And then Roll20 SPT, that's exciting though. Yeah,
Roll20 and SPT, it's going to be really amazing, just mainly with this meta shift as well. I feel like it's changed kind of the dynamic and assumptions that I'm going to be having going in tomorrow's games. So I'm looking forward to it, you know, ready to kick it off.
I am too. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here at the Gold Club World Championship. We'll see you tomorrow for more Heroes of the Storm. Good night.